Okay. Ah. Oh, call Dr. Jeremy.
Calling Dr. Jeremy Mobile.
Hi, doctor. I'm on. You're going to be on soon? Just it's 4:10. I don't know. We have 10 minutes. I prepared a little bit today, but I mean, I hope you have some things prepared because this is one of the few times I was really busy and I I have a couple of things to say. I mean, I know the Parsha, but the thing is that you want you if you want to carry most of the load tonight, it's fine with me. If you don't, I have some things I can say, but I mean, okay. I've been focusing on the Parsha and the paranormal. That's what I've been focusing on. Okay. Well, yeah, it's Parsha this week. I think it's Tzav. Yeah, Tzav. Yeah, well, we can discuss it. I mean, I have some ideas. Let's see what the yeah, I know. I mean, there's always like yeah. I mean, you're gonna it's gonna let's. I always believe in I take a very inclusive approach, so we can maybe take a survey and see how the other people feel because they always bring fresh insights and fresh like Hidushim innovations every year. The people that join us are an incredibly insightful bunch. So a very enlightened group of people. So anyway, all right, I'm on. I'll see you online in a few minutes. All right. Yeah, all related to the word mitzvah tzivui. Command. That's the parsha. All those are related words. Okay, very good. I'll see you in a few minutes. Bye bye.
Welcome, everybody. Ah, nice. Nice to see everybody here. Oh, Renee, we haven't seen you in a long time. I'm so glad that you're here. Ah, shalom. Wonderful. All right. Well, tonight's Parsha is Tzav, Tzav. And if you want to dedicate your Torah study to someone or something, a cause perhaps, please go ahead, put it in the chat. There are a lot of causes that need a lot of prayers, and Torah study helps facilitate your hearing of your wishes by the divine. So go ahead and and put it in. Oh, yes. To Hank, yes, we have lots of people. So welcome. So Tzav means command. And this is kind of one of those uh sort of parshas where you feel like you're reading it and have deja vu all over again, because it rather than it talks last week we learned about all the different korbanot, all the different sacrifices, and this week it talks about how to do them. Okay, so that's what we're going to talk a little bit about. Um, about is this this Zoom has an AI bot and you couldn't command it to go away? Oh, is it? Do we have an AI bot on here? I don't see it, Lolan. I'm sorry. Let me see. Are you ask? I'm gonna ask Lolan to unmute and explain. Is there something wrong? Okay. All right. Well, if not, let let us know. So, Rabbi, why don't you take it away with the bracha?
Sure. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher b'chad b'mekol ha'amim v'natan lanu Torah baruch atah Adonai noten Torah.
Amen. Amen. So, korbanot. Let's talk a little bit about that. That's the word that we roughly translate into English as as sacrifices, right?
Yeah.
Sacrifices, but I don't believe it means that. Really, right?
It's related to the word kiruv.
Right, which should be close,
Draw to
right?
bring close, to be makarev.
And that exactly, and that's what I wanted to point out, tell everybody a little bit about that. It's like for us, it's very interesting if you think about it. For us, we call them sacrifices. I don't know why you call it a sacrifice, really. You call it a sacrifice because you're taking something of your own value and you're destroying it, I guess, for God or the divine or your God, whatever it is, your sacrifice, whoever you're sacrificing something to. It's a donation, but that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever to me, because the reality is that really you've got this divine entity and you want something from it. So you're going to ask for something. And so the way you ask for it is, I would agree, by drawing it closer to you, as opposed to making a sacrifice. Are you really making a sacrifice if you're going to turn around and say, listen, I'll give you this very valuable cow, but in return, I hope that you'll give me a prosperous new year? That's not a sacrifice to me. That's an investment. I would call that an investment. I would not call that a sacrifice. So I think there's confusion in the terms. Do you have any, I don't know, thoughts, perspicacious thoughts about that, Rabbi? It
There are
is.
different type of korbanot, but what you're touching on actually brings me to the point of actually is an interesting prelude to what this week's parsha is all about. The Tzav for means command, and it's actually it's a very unusual word because usually in the Torah
Mhm.
when typically introduces a mitzvah, and the word tzav is related to mitzvah, tzivui, tzav, command. A mitzvah is a
Yeah,
commandment, right? So usually you will use the word like daber, which means to speak. Medaber. I need medaber ivrit, daber is to speak.
to
Or it might
speak.
use the word emor, which means to say. Omri, ani omer, I say, like, but the word sav is the least common, and it means a commandment. Now, what's interesting about this, what's very interesting about this, is that a command isn't a suggestion. It's a requirement. The korbanot, we have the korban tamid, which is it's a sacrifice that should be brought for all generations. So, the korban tamid is the daily offering. Okay, it's a daily offering. It has to be done every single day.
It has to be done every day, right?
Yeah,
Every
it was
day.
a daily offering. It was a sacrifice that was brought each day. It was one lamb in the morning and another lamb in the afternoon. That was the korban tamid. Two
Very
lambs, one in the
expensive.
morning, one in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Corresponding to we daven shachar in the morning, mincha in the afternoon. So
Mhm.
those are the prayers that we say. We don't have the temple, so but it was corresponding that the korban tamid were basically two lambs. Now, what's interesting about this
Mhm.
is I wanted to go into the Ner Tamid, which is the Ner Tamid is the eternal flame, or the flame that if you go into any synagogue, you'll see that flame above the Aron HaKodesh where the Torah is kept.
Yeah. If you go
And
into any, what Rabbi's saying is in all synagogues, even to this day, we
right,
have an eternal flame. We have a flame going, a candle going. It's called the eternal flame.
right. And what's really kind of interesting about this is that what does it why what's the purpose of it? What does it signify? What does it represent? Well, I think most people here, I think certainly Lolan, I think certainly Ava Shaw, I think certainly Faith McCann, I think many of the people here would be able to chime in and add to this. But Aish, in every culture, Aish is fire. Okay, what does fire represent? Aish represents passion, right? It
Mhm.
represents a passion. We say, when we talk about somebody who's passionate about someone, boy, they're on fire, right? Uh, actually, well, I teach Kabbalistic tarot. So in tarot, wands, the suit of wands is related to the suit of fire, Aish. Aish, again, wands represents passion. So the concept of passion is related to the Ner Tamid, to the eternal flame. So what is the idea of an eternal flame? Is that we are supposed to maintain a passionate connection, a spiritual connection that's really required to avoid, no pun intended, burnout.
Yeah.
Right? No pun intended, but burnout. Because basically, what it is that, we get so involved with, I don't know, making a livelihood, making a parnasa, right? Making a
Mhm.
livelihood, or pursuing our own personal goals. You know, the thing is however you're going to establish or develop a spiritual dimension to your life, okay, whichever path you choose,
Mhm.
it's very important to have that spiritual dimension in your life to avoid burnout. Because, we're not just physical beings. We're not just a goof, a body.
Mhm.
And we're not just a physical being. There's a spiritual dimension. Unless that spiritual, the neshama, the soul, unless it's nourished, it's like a plant. Okay, it has to be nourished. You have to water it. You have to provide it nutrients. And you can't just say, well, gee, I watered my plant. Okay, fine, I'll water it again when I get around to it. It's something that has to be done continuously, right?
Right,
It's something that
right.
has to be done on an ongoing basis. I often point out that, you know,
Well, that's a yeah.
one
Go
of
ahead. You're bringing me to a really important point. Yeah.
yeah, one of my favorite portions in the morning prayer in the Siddur, the Hebrew prayer book, is a
Hmm.
phrase. I've mentioned it many times before. It's one of my favorite phrases. Uftuvo, who in his goodness, Uftuvo mechadesh b'chol yom tamim aseh v'chayeshit, who in his goodness renews daily the work of creation. All right, related to
Mm.
Korban Tamid, the Ner Tamid, and we have Uftuvo mechadesh b'chol yom tamid ma'aseh v'chayeshit, who renews daily the work of creation. So we believe that we're constantly being renewed. We're constantly being created anew. Each moment we're a new creation. So what we're looking at is that we have to constantly maintain this connection. In Hebrew, that's not an easy word to translate into English. Devekat Hashem. Devekat is our connection, our bond with the spiritual dimension
Hmm.
is essential for us to avoid burnout, where we feel depleted, we feel depressed, we feel
Well,
dejected.
I have a question for you. I
Go
have a
ahead.
question. All right, the question about burnout. Like we have now been doing Parsha for
Right.
3 years. And I guess I'm going to pose this question to everybody. We've
Please.
been doing a little bit of Parsha of the paranormal, which has been very well attended and very exciting. And our Parsha group is always well attended. We always have a minion. It's very exciting. But I do feel like maybe we should figure out a way of changing it up and no veer off of just the Torah and maybe examine some of these other other esoteric books like Shorshai Hashemot, by Moshe Cordovero, and learn how to make amulets or something else. But I don't want to. I don't want to. If it's working, I don't want to. I don't want to. I don't want to change what's working. So I want people out there to discuss. Oh, we can discuss the stations of the
The
seven
Sfirot,
books.
the Sfirot.
That would be a good one. That would be.
That's what actually Faith McCann and I were talking just the other day, and for the Parsha and the paranormal, because I couldn't. Amy Shaw had an excellent suggestion about the giant deer and the giant lion, but as you yourself said, Doctor, there's not a lot of information on that. It's
Yeah.
almost like a side note, a reference, and there just isn't enough to flesh out. There's not enough flesh out. It was an excellent suggestion, and it was very interesting. That these creatures are referenced, but they really don't give very much. They're referenced only. I could only find them in one place. What about you, Doctor?
I found three places, and the
Okay.
most, the Talmud. There was in two sections in the Talmud, and
Yeah.
Rashi himself had written on it, and I read Rashi, and and I think that was it.
That was
But
it. That was it.
yeah,
I mean that's
there's not much
yeah,
there.
that's right. Rashi references it, the Talmud, but I mean they don't go into any great depth about it.
No, no. And for
Just that the
those who
giant
don't know
lion,
what
he
we're
saw the
talking
lion
about,
and the teeth
for
fell
those,
out and they came closer, and then the
yeah,
kings tell the rabbi, send it away. I don't want to have any dealings with. That was it.
yeah, for those who don't know what we're talking about, Ava Avishal had asked us for Parsha of the Paranormal to talk about these two cryptids. One is a giant deer with a single horn, and the other one was a giant lion. And they're mentioned ever so briefly. The lion is discussed, has more around it. The deer, the giant deer, has one black horn, and really the discussions of these two animals occur during a debate as to whether or not they would be kosher if whether or not they were found, which is very funny to me. Oh, Pirkei Avot would be a wonderful choice, Mark Gilmore. Mark Gilmore suggests that maybe we read through Pirkei Avot. That would be an absolutely great choice. Pirkei Avot.
Okay.
Another good one might be Sefer Hasidim, which has vampires and all sorts of
Sefer
werewolves.
Hasidut, yes.
Yes, and or even some of the stories of Besht. I mean, we could do it out of order. We don't have to necessarily do it in order. We could just say next week we're going to do this particular chapter. So I like this idea, and I like the fact that everybody is open to it. So I appreciate
Pirkei
it.
Avot and Sefer Hasidut. I think, Doc, I'd have tons of materials already prepared on those.
Yeah, I think
Pirkei Avot, because I'm always quoting Pirkei Avot, and Sefer Hasidut is something I've been reading, learning, and the Eshtri, the Jewish vampires, the werewolves, the relation to Binyamin, the Baal Shem Tov.
Yep.
I'm sure, Dr. Jeremy, you're a descendant of the Baal Shem Tov. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So he was the one that defeated werewolves, and there's a famous story that a man came and was possessed by a I don't know, maybe it's ebook or whatever. But he was possessed by an evil, or I don't know exactly what, but he would transform into a wolf, and the Baal Shem Tov was able to liberate him from the from
clutches,
from the
spiritual
dibuk that was
clutches.
causing this transformation, the dibuk. Anyway, that's a famous story about the Baal Shem Tov. So yeah, but they have all in there. I mean,
All right. Well, let's give it a go. Turning back a little bit back to Tzav, of this week, I want to say that if you read it, and I urge you to go ahead and read it, and I urge you to go ahead and watch last year's discussion about it. There is, two questions come up. These are all technical ways of literally describing how do you make this type of sacrifice, korbanot. How do you make that type of a guilt offering? How do you make one for this? Are they supposed to eat
you
it?
have all different types. You have the shlamim, the chatas, the ola. Yeah.
So it's the directions, and I find it interesting that two things. One is that you find a lot in there about transference of both holiness and contamination via touching. So there's the magical transference of holiness is discussed a lot in this section. So if you want to learn about that, I urge you to read this section. But it brings me to the question: when there is no Beit HaMikdash, again, how do we apply these korbanot? How do we make a guilt offering in this day and age?
The answer given in yeshiva, but in my yeshiva, and every yeshiva basically, but in my yeshiva included, Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam. That learning Torah is the equivalent. Talmud Torah, learning Torah is Keneged Kulam. It is like the equivalent of doing all the mitzvot. So the idea is the mitzvot, by learning about the korbanot, the hilchas korbanot, the laws of the korbanot, it's equivalent to actually performing the korbanot.
A
That's
little weak, but
the
okay.
traditional answer given. And I'm saying, well, if that is the case, like in ancient times, the Shalosh Regalim, uh, the, uh, the pilgrimages that they had to endure and do these travels and everything like that. I mean, if that's the case, why couldn't we just sit back and
Yeah.
learn about the carbonite if it's the equivalent of doing the carbonite? But every time I open my mouth in my yeshiva, I was like, "Zai still shaking b'vakasha, you Irishman."
Check out Bavakasha, those famous words. Those famous words. It means shut the hell up.
Right, exactly. So but I mean, I would say, come on, it's a good shaila.
It's a good
It's a good
question, right?
question, but so that's the traditional answer given. The thing is that when it also relates to the carbon tamid, though, to get back to my point, the idea of spiritual burnout, it had to be done daily. That's why the word tzav. Tzav is the most, how would you say,
Well,
forceful way of saying it. The word tzav is
oh.
related to the word mitzvah, tzivui. It's the most forceful way of saying it. It's not a suggestion, okay? It's a requirement. And then just to finish the point that I was making is that it's required. Every one of us, and like I said, whatever spiritual path you follow, I use Judaism as my frame of reference because that's the one I came up with. That's the one I'm familiar with. But I don't. You can apply this to whatever framework, whatever spiritual framework you have. But it's very, very important to keep that spiritual dimension alive in your life to avoid burnout, to maintain your passion. As I alluded to earlier, Aish is fire. Fire relates to passion. In tarot, like I said, the suit of wands is related to Aish, the element of fire, which is passion. Swords Avira, air. Cups, mayim, water. Pentacles, Adama, earth. But each one has an elemental correspondence. But the idea of Aish is always related to passion, the zest for living, right? The zest for life. Without having a spiritual dimension in your life, ultimately you're going to have burnout. I'm not going to, for those of us who are Jewish, you can use the Jewish framework. Other people can use different frameworks. Uh, I was talking to Faith, and she was telling me, alluding to things which I found fascinating about, she was saying she's incredibly knowledgeable about all different types of metaphysical. She's a wealth of metaphysical knowledge, is all I'll say. A wealth of metaphysical knowledge. One thing she was saying, though, is that if you just look at, let's say, we were talking about the Kabbalah, Dr. Jeremy. Okay, you just bring a carbon to get what you want. Is that a sacrifice? Is that a sacrifice, or is that just saying, "Hey, you know what, Hashem, have I got a deal for you?"
Exactly. It's an
Right?
yeah.
Have I got a deal for you? And it's almost like you're bargaining or bartering with Hashem. All right, so the idea of the Ner Tamid is the daily. I mean, the korban Tamid, the daily sacrifice. It has to be brought each day. This is a sacrifice. The idea you're bringing it every day to maintain your connection with the divine. You're bringing it on a daily basis to maintain your connection with the divine. Tamid, the word tamid means continuous. Okay, tamid. The ner tamid is the eternal flame that they had in the Mishkan, that we have in the synagogues today above the Aron HaKodesh where the Torah scroll is kept. And then the Korban Tamid, it's an ongoing thing. And as I said, one of my favorite things in the Siddur, Uftava Mechadesh B'chol Tamid Ma'aseh, who in his goodness renews daily the work of creation. Well, just as we're being renewed daily, we also have an obligation to renew our connection with the divine on a daily basis. Now you say, well, you know what? We have Bechiras Chafshuf. We have free will. We can decide, hey, you know what? I want to, it's a matter of whether or not think about, let's say, let's relate it to a physical need. Eating.
Well, yeah, I was just about to say, some of the
I ate
offerings
yesterday. What do I have to
actually
eat
on
today for? You know, oh, eating, drinking, taking a shower, all of these things, we have to do them tamid. They're an ongoing thing. Okay. Okay. I can choose not to, but my wife isn't going to want to sit next to me. She's going to tell me, go downstairs, honey. I'll see you next year, or I can choose not to eat or not to eat healthy foods. I can choose not to, whatever it is. I can choose not to do those things, but I'm going to suffer as a result. All I'm saying is, unless we maintain a spiritual connection, a spiritual dimension in our lives, we can choose not to. We can, fine, you can just choose to say,
it's spiritual upkeep, just like you
exactly.
have healthy
Something
upkeep,
inside of you is going to
you
wither,
know.
like a plant that's not nourished, that's not watered. Something inside of you is going to wither and perish without a spiritual dimension in your life.
Yeah.
That's
So
what the Ner Tamid comes to teach us. The Korban Tamid, the Ner Tamid. It's an ongoing thing that we constantly have to nourish and replenish our spiritual vitality to be whole, complete, healthy, mind, body, and spirit.
yeah, I thought it was interesting that that you again, this becomes very complicated because you have some of these sacrifices, okay, as we've translated them, except for the fact that some of the Kohanim, some of the priests, eat the sacrifices, right? They're making a meal out of it. So, who is the sacrifice for? Or what is the mechanism by which the high priest eating this substance clears up the atmosphere so that there is no longer a contamination? How does that work is what I want to know. You understand my question?
I
It's
understand the question. In other words, what's the mechanism? What's the idea that the Kohanim would
yeah,
meet of the sacrifices, and what was the mechanism by
and
which
not
that
all of
worked?
them, only some of them,
Right.
and yeah, only some of them. And I think where were we? It might have been last week where someone in the chat mentioned the idea that the word blessing comes from the word for blood, right? And
It comes
that
from the word for what now? Bracha?
blood, blood, and it comes
For
from
blood?
blood, yes. And
Like dam is the word, or demay, or dam is the word for blood in Hebrew, like basar v'dam, flesh and
In
blood.
Hebrew, but the word in English, blessing comes from blood.
Oh, in English, yes.
In Old English comes from blood,
Blood,
and
blood. Yeah, could be.
yes, and that's because and it comes from this particular chapter, because when they would spatter the blood and they would mark the ears, they would mark your ears, and I think I told the story maybe last year or the year before, probably. I think maybe the year before. I don't think I remember telling it last year. That when I was very young, I was a horseman, a famous horseman, and I would go on fox hunts where people wore what they're called pinks, but they're red coats, they're red jackets, and the hunt cap with the black. And we would go with the hounds, and we would run after the fox. And if we ever caught a fox, which we did not catch a fox 99% of the time because the foxes are too smart, if we did catch a fox, then they would cut the ears off the fox and they would take the blood and they would dab the people's faces and ears of the people who had not ever been on a fox hunt where there had been a kill. This was a method of blessing them, the exact method that is in this Parsha, Tzav.
Hmm.
That's how old that
Exactly.
method is. So
Exactly. So I was just seeing a comment we got from Lolan. Lolan,
yeah.
I always like hearing from Mr. Lolan. He mentions this person, I can't pronounce her name,
Oh yeah,
different
Joanne
religious traditions from
Gajewski.
all over the world. And Ezahu Chacham, Lolan, who's the wise person? Lomed Mikol Adam. He learns from everyone. So Mark Gilmore says, and Mark Gilmore says in voodoo, animal sacrifices, the blood is offered to spirits, but the meat feeds the community. Um,
Yeah.
my knowledge of voodoo is very limited. I know that I think a voodoo priest
That's
is called a Gangan, and like they have kind of like a Cohen and a Levi. I think the Hungan and the Gangan, if I'm not mistaken,
yeah.
they call that in voodoo. But the meat doesn't go to the Gangan; it goes to the tzibor, to the community. Which what I would say from that, Mister Gilmore, is that. Uh, so it's much better to be a Cohen, isn't it? Because the meat get all the meat. Rather be a Cohen than a Ganga. I'm neither a Cohen nor a Levi. I'm a Mick, but a Rabbi Mick. But much better to be a Cohen then, because you get all the meat. Where's the beef?
So yeah, there you go. Yeah. Yeah, well, Joanne Gajewski is very knowledgeable. We should have her on. Yeah, we should have her on. She hasn't been on in a while. I should pick her brain. She is very smart. So, yeah, and certain types of fat are not allowed to be eaten, and well, also, right?
Yeah.
Which types of fat? Do you remember? I don't
What? The
remember.
different types of fat.
Fat,
Fat is
animal
human.
fat. Which fat? Which fat? Any fat of oxen, sheep, or goats you shall not eat.
Right,
The
right.
fat of an animal that has died and the fat of an animal that has been torn to death may be put to any use, but you shall not eat it. For anyone who eats the fat of an animal species from which one may bring a fire offering to Hashem, the soul that eats it will be cut off from his people.
They get correct. Right. They get
Yeah,
correct, which is correct is a form of like
excommunication.
spiritual excision, if it were, or
Yeah.
something like that. You're spiritually cut off. Correct. There are interpretations that correct actually means a person dies before a certain age. We generally interpret it to mean a spiritual cutting off. But the idea is you can't eat an animal that has died of natural causes is considered nevela. So you can't eat an animal that's died of natural cause. Well, the thing this is that you can't even do shechita, right? The ritual
Right. You
slaughtering of an
can't
animal. You can't slaughter an animal that's
you can't
already dead.
slaughter.
So, but that's called nevela, and you can't so that's the idea. It says the fat of an animal that's dead. You can't. Okay, fine. But the different types of fat, I'd have to actually go back into the go back and refresh my memory on the different types of fat. But yeah, the shore, the ox, the sheep, those are the
The
three
goat, yeah.
categories. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's a bit again about uh the breastplate and the Urim and Thummim, right? He placed the
Right. The
breastplate
Choshen
upon him
Mishpat.
and he placed the Urim and Thummim. So they're separate things. We know that they're separate things, and they're placing them. Oh, and this part is I like this part because we talked about this part last year. He put the
Right.
turban upon his head, and upon the turban towards his face, he placed the golden head plate, the sacred diadem, as Hashem had commanded Moses. So, three things we've got going on here. Firstly, there was no turban on his head, which means that he wasn't wearing a kippah, which last year Rabbi McLashley pointed out that they weren't really in vogue until the 2nd century. So there you go. This is the term, and they also started off as large coverings, and they got smaller and smaller as they were tried to be hidden and a little bit more subtle. The
Mhm.
second thing I wanted to point out, of course, is the golden head plate according the sacred diadem. This is what is being discussed in the book of Abramelin. So you see this sacred diadem in the book of Abramelin, and you see that also in the chariot card of the tarot. The chariot driver is wearing that, I believe.
Right, is wearing a well, depending on what system you come from, you can read all things into it. I cannot
Sure.
state confidently that it's mamash, the Choshen Mishpat. It's just basically given my frame of reference, which is Judaism. I look at it and I say, boy, that looks like the Choshen Mishpat. It's a
Exactly.
plate over the breast, and and Arthur Edward Waite and Pamela Colburn Smith, who were members of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, incorporated a lot of imagery, Kabbalistic imagery, into. I'm not saying that the tarot was invented by
No,
Kabbalists,
no,
but
no.
I'm saying
But
there's
it
a lot
has,
of Kabbalistic imagery in the
yeah,
tarot,
it has
or
a
at least
lot
the
of,
Rider-Waite Smith uh, iteration of the tarot.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah.
It's long
Uh,
history. I mean, tarot
oh,
actually
Faith
started.
says
Uh,
dabbing blood on new hunters would be an ancient form of sympathetic magic, attraction of their prey to the hunter. Absolutely, that's absolutely, and
yeah,
what's why it's a blessing. That's right.
yeah.
Yeah,
You have to slit the throat, he said, through and drain the blood, right? Yeah, that exists
yeah,
today. We kosher the meat. We have to salt it and soak it so it's completely. There can't be any blood.
I know.
For religious Jews, we have to kosher the meat, which means completely soak it, salt it, drain it of any blood. Blood in any form is a no-no. I didn't have that problem. I came up vegetarian, and I'm
Right.
vegetarian to this day, 70.
And this is why this again salt being used as a
Right,
decontaminant, right?
right.
This is
So the
why
eye
salt
koshering
is
is to
so
get rid of the
important.
blood, to get rid of the dumb, the demay, the blood. So I don't have to, you know, you don't have
Yeah.
to soak and salt a carrot to kosher it. It's
Uh, have you ever seen that? Have you ever seen that Far Side cartoon, which is one of my favorites, which is vegetarians coming home from the hunt, from the kill, or something like that, and they're all holding a giant carrot, you know, you know. So, well, I mean, I think this is a good. This might be an early Parsha. I think we've exhausted a lot of material here. So,
the
what do
one
you
thing
think?
is about slitting the throat. Yeah, the laws, I've alluded to this before, but the whole idea of shechita, the ritual slaughtering, the way it's done in Judaism, it minimizes the suffering of the animal. The idea is that the chalaf, the knife that's used, has to be what they call beli pagam, has a small nick, a blemish, a nick, a scrape, a scratch on the knife, renders it impermissible because it could extend the suffering of the animal by an imperceptible measure. But the idea is it has to be done. There's all these laws that the sheikhet, a
If
shochet is a ritual slaughterer. There's all these laws
if
that, that
you've
that
ever
one
seen a
has to
Jewish
know
knife sharpener, you'll know
exactly. That
exactly.
one has to
You
know
got
to
these
minimize.
guys in Israel that could go from little neighborhood to neighborhood, and everybody comes with their knives, and man, they sharpen them like it's never been that sharp before in its life.
Right.
It's
Quick
unbelievable.
question, rabbis. This is Lolan. Now, a lot of times in butcher factories, one animal sees the one ahead of it slaughtered and killed.
Right.
Would that make that not kosher because that's psychological suffering?
I'll tell you something. The former chief rabbi of Ireland is quoted in a book. The former chief rabbi of Ireland. I'm not the right rabbi to ask. Because my hashkafa, my view of this, Mr. Lolan, and you're asking a very good question as you usually do, but my view on this is divergent from what many of my many Orthodox colleagues would say. I basically, the former chief rabbi of Ireland actually was quoted in a book that was published by People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, that he holds Bisman Hazeh in modern times. And I don't agree with his point of view here, incidentally, but I'm going to quote it because it has some merit to it, even though I don't agree with it. I can not that it has merit, but I understand where he's coming from. He holds that today, Bisman Hazeh, that there is really no such thing as kosher meat. I don't agree with it, but this is what he goes out on a limb and says that because, and he relates it to the very concept relating to what you're saying, the concept of tsar balei chayim, causing suffering to any living creature. He says it's not just a matter of how it's slaughtered, it's a matter of how the animal is treated prior to slaughter. So the idea is like they have what they call shackling and hoisting. And in when I was doing kosher food supervision, one time I had the unpleasant task of witnessing that, and the way the animals are treated prior to slaughter. Like you take chickens and you keep them all cooped up where they don't have access to fresh air or sunlight or this and that, and you treat God's living creature is nothing more than commodities to be exploited and profited off of. He brings in the question, can you call that kosher? I understand where he's coming from. I can't say more than that, but I can understand. I would say that, the whole, Lolan, if you look at the Torah, and I talk about this, you have to chase away the mother bird before you can take her eggs. You can't yoke a shore and a chamor, an ox and a donkey together, because they graze at different rates. And it could distress the animals because they want to graze and they're grazing at different rates. It's causing them distress. Again,
You have to feed them first. You have to feed your pets first,
right?
right? You have to feed the
So
pets
the
first.
idea is that I really think that the Torah, if you're going to take a really literalist approach and say, oh well, you can't yoke a shore and a chamor, a donkey and an ox together, but hey, you know what? I want to yoke an ox and a giraffe together. The Torah doesn't say I can't do that. I look beyond that and say, you know what? No, the Torah is trying to show that we have to treat all entities, every living entity deserves respect, compassion, to be treated compassionately, and that's the overall message there.
So,
So, Lolan, you always bring up good questions. You're tuned into what we're talking about.
well,
Thank you
That's a
very
good
Rabbi
much.
question.
Renee Running Deer has a question that
Okay,
I don't know the answer to, but I'll read it out loud.
I might not
My,
know it either, but I'll
you're gonna know the answer.
hear the question.
My understanding of kosher slaughter was that the animal was taken into a chamber and killed alone out of sight of others. I don't remember where I read that. The idea was to keep others from seeing it. That may be, I think, the bird thing. I don't,
That may be the bird thing. Yes, I'm
but
not.
but I'm not sure. Is it? Do you kill a cow in front of other cows?
The what?
Do you kill a cow in front of other cows?
I would have to investigate that. I've never
I
actually
would
done
say they would
shchita.
probably take it away, like for the same
Yeah, I've never
logic.
done shchita, but I mean, the thing that says running deer would it makes a good point for the same reason you have to take away
Yeah,
you have to chase away the mother bird before you take her eggs. It
yeah,
would
I
make
would say the
sense what
same
she's
thing.
saying.
I would say the same. I would say, we'll go look. Renee, we'll go look that answer up, or you could look that answer up and tell us. Oh, so Faith says not in kosher slaughter. My father was a butcher in a kosher farming community, so Faith knows the answer. She agrees. I think we would all say that yeah, probably they have to be alone, out of witness, out of view of the other animals. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's very simple. Never walk into another room unaccompanied.
Yeah. I did as mashgiach. There was one time, a long time ago, mashgiach, and I did have, like I said, the unpleasant task of witnessing kosher slaughter. I never saw them slaughter an animal in front of another animal. Where that is in the laws of Yoredea, which is what you have to learn to become a rabbi, is that the law, the Yoredea deals with the laws of kashrut.
Oh, it must be
And
also in Shulchan Aruch, I would think, too.
yeah, I'm sure it would be in the Shulchan Aruch. But no, I've never seen. Faith McCann is probably absolutely right. Just slaughtering an animal in front of another animal again. It just a person. I didn't even like it. Actually, there's a thing that it says if a person has kas, anger, you know that like a person, they have bloodlust. That's the word I'm looking for. They have bloodlust. It suggests that they should become a sheikhet. That's again spiritual alchemy, which for the Parsha and the paranormal, I'm going to explain spiritual alchemy, how you can transform negative character traits into positive. You're not getting rid of your negative character traits. You're actually performing spiritual alchemy. Alchemists would transform opheret, lead, into gold, or at the philosopher's stone, the quest for the philosopher's stone, the secret of transmuting lead into gold. Well, the Passover Seder, at least in a Kabbalistic Pesach Seder, there's 15 steps, processes, where we're transforming ga'ava, which represents pride, arrogance. The reason that we get rid of chametz, the leaven products, is chametz. What does yeast cause the bread to do? It
Oh,
causes the dough to rise, right? You
yeah.
become puffed up, arrogant. So the whole thing is here, it's a form of spiritual alchemy to take it and to take a negative and turn it into a positive. For example, last week's Parsha, right? We were talking about the Chetay Glazahav, the sin of the golden calf. So you take the gold; they brought the gold to this connection with gold, or this veneration of gold, right? This veneration of gold led them to commit when they committed the Chetay Glazahav, they rushed to bring the gold to make the sin of the golden calf, to make this golden calf. But they rushed to bring the gold also for the purpose of building the Mishkan. Mishkan Zahav was an important part of the Mishkan. So the idea is that it wasn't the gold itself that was inherently, innately, intrinsically, whatever, corrupt or evil or this and that. It's what you use it for. Well, the same thing with our own personality, our own midot, right? Whatever they are, our own character traits. Midot is like our characteristics, our character traits. Judaism doesn't posit the thing that anything is inherently or innately evil. It posits that, you know what, even as we alluded to, Dr. Jeremy and I alluded to last time, Tuesday is a day that's related to the Yetzer Hara, the evil impulse, and it's called Tov Ma'od. It's called very good, not just good, but very good, because it's a double tikkun. It's a double rectification to take a negative and transform it into a positive. If I just do a positive, that's great. I've done a positive, but that doesn't mean that I've negated a negative. But when I take something that's a negative and perform spiritual alchemy and transform it into a positive, then that's doing double duty, right, Doctor?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think Cynthia, do you have a question, Cynthia? No? Okay. Yeah, I agree with you.
Right.
I
So
absolutely.
that's what we're going to go into in the Parsha and the paranormal.
All right, that's going to be Sunday.
Spiritual alchemy.
not this. That's going to be. Is it this Sunday? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, this Sunday
This Sunday.
at
Yeah.
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock. That's right. This coming Sunday, 5 o'clock, the 29th. Be there or be square.
I was thinking that very phrase, Doctor. You plucked it out of my brain. That's amazing. I was thinking as I was thinking I'm about to say that, but you beat me to it. It was amazing.
Beat you
You
to
read
it.
my mind.
It
One of
happens
your
every
many
once in a while.
talents.
It'll be 5 p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. Eastern time. Yeah. And what are you gonna talk about? What you want to give us a hint of the subject?
The Pesach Seder, the
Pesach
Passover, because
Seder.
we have Passover coming up.
Yep.
And I want to do maybe two or a couple of Parsha and the Paranormal, Parsha and Paranormal on the Kabbalah of food as it relates to
Oh yeah.
our spirituality and how food can be incorporated into our
Well, you have
into our spiritual awakening, our spiritual nourishment. What I was alluding to
you,
today, food can play a very important, it can have a metaphysical, magical, metaphysical, spiritual impact on our,
well, you
on our
have
lives,
round
on our
challah
being.
on Rosh Hashanah. You have
Right,
dates, and you're supposed to eat certain foods on certain holidays for
right,
reasons and for lots of reasons. And in Passover, the last night you have Lila Mamuna, right, where you're
right.
where fish and it's very important for prosperity and anti um, keep away the evil eye, again, always with prosperity and keeping away the evil eye, both of those. So there's a lot of food, transformational food, magical food ingredients. Yeah, for sure.
I'll tell you something funny for Rosh Hashanah. It was very, of course, to have the head of a fish, as Doctor alluded to earlier. Well, I came up vegetarian, so myself and I think Rabbi McNabb also, his family does the same thing, Rabbi McNabb. But we'd have a head of cabbage. Hey, it's Irish and it's a head, so we really
Yep.
had a head of cabbage to represent the idea. Well, it's a head, because you're supposed to have the head of the fish. So.
I like it. Well, I mean, we're close to, it's 8:55 or whatever. I think we've probably made it to the end. We have Ma'ariv tomorrow. I think we should call it a day and end a little earlier and
We did pretty good. It's
pretty well.
we're ending what, 7 minutes early, 6 minutes
Yeah,
early.
a few minutes early, not so bad.
That's
Uh,
not so bad.
and we'll try to change it up in the future. And I will be more. I'll let everybody know in advance as to what we'll be chatting about, so that way they can be more prepared. Yeah. All
Well,
right.
Lolan, thank you. Lolan writes great Parsha, thank you. And Lila Tov to him, and Chapin Walton, Mark Gilmore.
You guys are the best. You do.
Love having all of you guys with us. And
Yeah, it's 20 people. We got it's great. I will
thank
put
you.
this up on YouTube. All right. All right. Lila Tov.
Lila Tov, everyone.
Good night.